Under 5 minutes left in a 5-0 game. Anaheim's beating the Coyotes 5-0. Trevor Zegras goes poking around at the goalie, thought the puck was loose. It wasn't anything crazy. He didn't spear him, but he went digging. And then Beagle came up to him, cross-checked him. A couple guys came to Zegras' defense, as happens after every whistle. And then just snap of the fingers, you look, and Jay Beagle is murdering Troy Terry's face with punches. Mm-hmm. Troy Terry was never really engaged in that fight. His gloves were still on, and he was knocked out pretty much unconscious for a few seconds. So a really scary incident. There was also that commentary that went alongside it that I think took this incident from a talking point to a huge story. So that when Tyson Nashville said, "Oh, that's what happens when you skill it up. You got to get ready to get punched in the face." Mm-hmm. I think there's two conversations to be had here. The first one is, do you need guys in the lineup to prevent this? So let's start there. Like, where do you sort of stand on this situation as a whole? And you talked about guys like Clifford. Could they have made a difference in this situation in your mind?
Yeah, so first and foremost, there has been a move in the NHL towards skill and speed, like you mentioned, and that is objectively for the better. It's better for the fans. It's better for the league. It's better for player safety. There's a lot less head injuries. It's something that needed to be done because players were very vulnerable. However, this is the consequence. And consequence is a poor word because consequence has a negative connotation to it. This is the result of moving towards speed and skill.
Result, yeah.
You no longer have guys like George St. Pierre who are in the subconscious mind of players on the first and second line on that other team who go, if I destroy Troy Terry here, you better believe the next time I come out on this ice, St. Pierre is going to come and destroy me.
Yeah.
Right? So your question to me is, would this have been prevented if a player like St. Pierre...
Do you mean Larocque?
Larocque. Sorry.
Who's GSP is a fighter, so you're not completely
George,
wrong.
That's what it
George
was.
Larocque.
It's George St. Pierre and George Larocque. Hey, come on, they're the same type of.
They're both French. They both play. They're both. Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry, George Larocque. I apologize. No disrespect to that guy. He was a great player for the Habs, even though I greatly dislike the Habs. Yeah. So what you're asking me is, would that have been prevented if a player like that played on this team? And the answer to that question is undoubtedly yes. Do I think that this means that your fourth line should be full of grinders? Undoubtedly no, but those are not mutually exclusive. So let's talk about this. The Anaheim Ducks are the best example in the league of moving towards speed and skill. There is nobody on that team past, I think, Andre Schuster, who's over 6'3", and Andre Schuster is not known to be a guy who lays bodies. He's 6'7", but he might as well have been 5'8". He doesn't hit, right? If there is a guy like Milan Lucic playing for the third line on the Anaheim Ducks, there is no way Troy Beagle goes out and does that because he knows Daryl Sutter is going to he's going to line Milan Lucic up next to him on the next shift, and he's going to get his face knocked in.
Yeah, but do you think in the moment, because it seemed like Jay Beagle just was like the wires crossed, and you're not even thinking about what can happen the next second. Never mind the next shift. Mm-hmm. Do you think? I think he still would have beat him up. He would have got him beat up afterwards. So maybe he would have thought differently in the future. Uh-huh. But I feel like just based on how that situation unfolded, he still would have done what he did. He might have just gotten his ass beat afterwards.
So from my experience, my answer to that question would be no. And the reason why I say that is taking back to my experience playing hockey back in the day, when you would play in the playoffs against big, gritty teams, there would be a little less reluctance to lay a big hit because if you laid a big one, the guy on that third line is coming after you the next shift, and that scares you.
But in the moment, you can...
I'm telling you, in the moment, it's always in the back of your mind.
Even for Jay Beagle's case, where he sees a guy poking at his goalie, and then a guy comes up to him, he has the ability to think, "Oh, Lucic is on the bench. I better not fight this guy."
Yes.
And he beat him up without even... It didn't even seem like he thought twice about it.
Yes, I think Troy Beagle wouldn't have destroyed Troy Terry. I think he would have still cross-checked him, the normal stuff that players do to clear players from the crease, but there is no way he would have laid him out the way that he did because he would have gotten destroyed the next shift. And you know what? It is not a coincidence that the teams that are getting beat up like this are the fastest and the smallest teams in the league.
Yeah.
Do you notice anybody on Calgary getting destroyed? The answer to that question is no.
No.
So the problem becomes in the playoffs, there are not enough roster spots to have a guy like George Laraque who can barely skate but can offer protection.
You need both.
So what you need is you need a player like Milan Lucic who, for all intents and purposes, isn't the most skilled player but can still play on the third line.
He's good for like 10 goals or something.
Right? And maybe that's why Milan Lucic gets paid what he gets paid. He's objectively overpaid, but maybe there's a reason why big, tough guys who can play hockey in the sense that they can stick handle get paid more than they should.
Yeah, I think that's why he was signed to Edmonton. It was
Right.
It was you can score, but you can also maybe punch faces of people who mess with McDavid and Draisaitl.
That's the reason he was signed. The reason he was signed is because if you touch Connor McDavid, you're gonna have to face Milan Lucic.
But then he got traded because he sucked.
Yes, but he sucked really bad, and now he's better.
He's been a lot better. Respect to the way he's been able to turn around his game. I think this is where I stand on these types of situations. I think based on the way that the hockey is played and the NHL is played, you do need somebody who can do that. I just think
100%.
that it shouldn't have to be that way.
It shouldn't, but that's the way that it is.
And that's fine.
When emotions get high in the Stanley Cup final, guys are going to do things that they don't think first. Guys are going to go out in the front of the net and they're going to cross-check players, but in the back of their mind, they know if you're playing Washington and you cross-check Alex Ovechkin, you better believe next shift, 6'4", 220-pound Tom Wilson is coming out, lining up next to you, and he's going to fight you, whether you like it or not. Do I think that is right? No, that's obviously wrong because that promotes just concussions. It promotes a lot of problems. It's also a bad look for the younger players in the game who are looking up to players like Tom Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the way that it is.
And I think that's exactly where this situation is. This is a crappy part of the game because it's just not the way it should be, but it is the way it is, and you have to unfortunately adapt the way you build a team to not where you want hockey to be, but where hockey is, and that's an unfortunate reality.
Like, let's look at it with how skilled the Toronto Maple Leafs are. Kyle Clifford should not be in the lineup, and I know that you say that he's looked like he can play as of late, but based on purely skill, Nick Abruzzese is a better player than him.
For sure.
He is. The reason Kyle Clifford is in that lineup is because if Brad Marchand makes a stupid play in the playoffs where he goes after Austin Matthews and puts him in a hospital, there will be consequences. And having Kyle Clifford in that lineup possibly prevents rational players from doing stupid things to big players. Right.
But so you're talking about if Austin Matthews gets put in a hospital, which is of course the reason you have him there. But this situation started because they're losing 5-0 and Trevor Zegras Michigan goaled them. Mm-hmm. So it's not even because they poked the goalie, but this was brewing way before that happened. It's because they're better at the sport than you, so you resort to punching them in the face. That's the part that pisses me off.
It's the part that pisses me off too, but the reason why the reason why Milan Lucic plays for a team like Calgary is because that prevents Troy Beagle from quite possibly ending Troy Terry's career. Troy Terry could have been dangerously hurt there.
For sure he could have. But my thing is, instead of punching face, how about you become good at hockey? The Arizona Coyotes suck so bad. Jay Beagle is barely in the NHL, and he's only there because he makes less actual dollars than his cap hit. He's there because Arizona's poor as hell. Like, I just don't understand. In the NBA, if a guy's dropping 40 and shimmying like Steph Curry, they don't beat him up. They try and double team him, and they try and, the KD, if it's Brooklyn versus Golden State, KD's going, and now he's going to try and drop 40 on you. He's not punching Steph Curry in the face.
Yeah, so what you're saying are all rational arguments. The problem is that there's a current problem in the NHL.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
There's a bunch of babies that when you get destroyed, the answer is violence. And the long-term solution is keep those players out of the league with permanent suspensions. But right now, if you're asking me right now what the short-term solution is for teams, it's to have guys on the third line that offer not protection. Protection's the wrong word. The word is offer prevention. Because when a guy like Milan Lucic, not to beat a dead horse, is on that third line, I can't be doing this stupid stuff because there will be consequences.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think we're on the same page there. And we both are on the same page that we think it's not the way that it should be. I just think there's a larger conversation to be had about hockey culture, but this mentality is so deeply ingrained into hockey. We see it at the youth level. Even when you played, you talked about it when you were playing. When you were 12 and 13 years old, you were scared because you didn't want to get your face punched in because you were better than another player. I unfortunately don't see this changing in our lifetimes, and maybe even ever, just because hockey always has that aspect of violence that these other sports that I mentioned, basketball, they never had that.
Yeah, like I remember in the playoffs in the GTHL, granted we were only 14, 15, when a guy on our team would lay a huge clean hit on another player. Half the team would go, let's go, and the other half of the team would go, oh crap, we got to keep our head up.
Yeah.
Because we might get destroyed, especially if there's a third guy on that third line. And look, all of these things that we're saying, we know are wrong. That should not be the culture in hockey. It shouldn't. But right now, having guys on that third line quite possibly prevents that. Maybe that's why guys like Tom Wilson and Gabriel Landeskog get paid the way that they do.
Yeah.
Gabriel Landeskog makes what, $8 million over 8 years?
He got a big fat contract. It's somewhere between 8 and 10 or something.
Right.
He got paid. Yeah.
With the points that he had put up before signing that contract, we're not considering this year because he's having a career year. He was not worth $8 million. But maybe you pay him that because you know this guy offers you a dual purpose. You no longer have to bury $5 million in cap space paying a guy like Lucic on the third line because you get a 2-for-1 with Landeskog.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty sneaky tough guy, isn't he?
He's not sneaky. He's overtly tough. That guy will
fight anybody.
And Nathan MacKinnon is the same way.
He's a firecracker. That
kind
guy.
of to that detriment. And you know what? Maybe we'll talk about this really quickly with the MacKinnon injury that we saw.
Oh, because he hurt his hand fighting Dumba, right?
He got in a fight with Matt Dumba because Matt Dumba laid out
Mikko
Rantanen, and it was a clean hit.
Yeah.
But look, Matt Dumba, maybe if he knows that a guy like Gabriel Landeskog or Nathan MacKinnon isn't on that line, might do that 4 or 5 times. But he still made the choice to lay out Rantanen, and he faced the consequences. Nathan MacKinnon comes in, stands up for his player, gets in a fight, almost breaks his hand.
Yeah, hurt himself, which is not the guy you want fighting.
Right, and that's wrong. That is wrong. When a player gets hit in a clean way, MacKinnon should honestly face a suspension for having to fight Matt Dumba because of a clean hockey play. Because as we said, that promotes violence. And we're not going to continue this. We know that there's a deep problem in hockey culture. But my question to you is that if you are the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, are you telling your star players like Nathan MacKinnon not to get in fights, not to lay crazy hits at the risk of injury? Because if Nathan MacKinnon gets hurt there and he's out for the season, Colorado is no longer favorites to win the cup. Yeah,
I probably appreciate that he wants to stand up for his line mate and teammate, but I'm also thinking maybe let's leave that to Curtis McDermott, who is a 7th defenseman who's there to do that job. But that's just the way Nate is. He's a firecracker. He'll snap at any moment. He did it against, oh my gosh, he beat the crap out of somebody on Arizona because they high-sticked him. Do you remember that a few weeks ago?
Which is wrong. Nathan MacKinnon should understand that high stick, whether it was accidental or on purpose, the answer is not violence. But
no.
There's a problem.
Yeah, but that's just the type of guy that he is.
Yes.
He probably doesn't even have the foresight to think, "Oh, can I harm myself here?" He's like, "You just did something to me or my teammate. I want to fight you now."
Yeah,
and that's maybe something that will taper off as he gets a little older, and maybe inevitably, eventually hurts himself doing it, and then he's like, "Okay, maybe I got to stop." But as a coach, I'm like, please don't do that.
Yeah, especially with respect to Austin Matthews, as we talk about. I remember in the few Boston series that we lost tragically to, and against Columbus, there was a lot of talk of Austin Matthews not laying the body, not being gritty and strong during those playoff series. But now you start to wonder, did Babcock or Keefe tell Austin Matthews to maybe not shoulder a player because that shoulder had been bothering him?
He had a shoulder injury
for many months.
Yeah.
Right? And so do you, as Mike Babcock, do you say, hey, Austin, maybe don't finish your check because we don't want you out for the rest of the year? I think the answer to that question is yes.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if Bednar is telling MacKinnon now, man, do not fight anymore.
Especially in the regular season, they already clinched the playoffs. Like if Mikko gets hit, that's unfortunate.
Yep.
But don't risk our playoff success.
Yeah, if I'm a coach, I'm definitely telling my first line franchise players to, finish your checks, but don't do anything stupid because this team needs you.
Yeah.
Unless the players Nathan MacKinnon or Alex Ovechkin or Gabriel Landeskog were these, like that type of play is embedded in their style, then you let them go.
You got to let them go.